Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? This is going to be recorded, so if you don't make it or can't stay for the whole thing, you'll be able to watch it later online. I'd like to start by thanking the Spanish Water Dog Club of America for encouraging me to do this and to promote AKC Fetch. It is relatively new in the AKC scheme of things. It started about a year ago, and we hosted several events last year at our specialty. And this year we're going to expand and go even further. We're doing 6 different fetch events at our national specialty weekend in July, from July 25th to the 27th in Waukesha, Wisconsin. You can find out more about that at our website, swdclub.org, or on the AKC event portal, or you can go straight to the registration info and pages at travelswithpaco.com/fetch. I am not a professional dog trainer. My only real credential for doing this is that I have participated in a lot of dog training events with my own dogs, and I have trained my older Spanish water dog to qualify for all 4 levels of the AKC Fetch titles. Take my training methods with a grain of salt. You all know your dogs best, and you may want to override some of these suggestions with your own things that have worked for you. But certainly, I hope that you'll get at least a few nuggets of useful information out of this presentation. What will we cover? I'm going to start with a little bit of motivation for why you should train for AKC Fetch and why you should keep going until you get the highest level. I'm going to talk about the rules. I won't go into all of the rules because there are a lot of them, but I'll give you a kind of framework for understanding what the rules are and why they're in place. I'm also going to talk about what type of object is best for your dog to fetch in the fetch tests and what other equipment might you need to train effectively. I'm going to go over some common problems that people run into with fetch in the tests and how to correct for them. And then finally, I'm going to go through some drills and strategy that'll help you, especially with the advanced and retriever tests, which are a little bit harder. So in terms of why you should do fetch, the obvious one is that you get titles for it, and so it adds to that string of letters after your dog's name, which can certainly be impressive. Another thing is it's productive exercise, both for your dog and for you even. I like to joke with people that my older dog, Paco, is a more effective move thing than my watch, which kind of buzzes me every hour. Paco is much harder to resist. After every meeting that I have, he gets up and comes over with a ball in his mouth and wags his tail, and I really can't resist getting up and moving around. It's also a good team building exercise and helps give you a chance to channel your dog's natural instincts into something productive and useful. I think of it as a time portal or gateway to trying the sporting dog pastime without all the expensive equipment like guns and hunting clubs. Because basically, when it comes down to it, AKC Fetch is a simplified version of the AKC retriever hunt tests, which are in turn designed to prepare your dog for a waterfowl hunting experience. It's still fun, even if you don't get into hunting. And here's an example. My personal motivation for getting into fetch is my own older Spanish water dog named Paco. That's him on the left. We mainly do upland hunting for pheasants and partridges and quail. We're starting to get into waterfowl hunting, but just to prove that fetch is fun and useful, not just for hunting. On the right, you've got in the upper right, that's Paco in the World Dog Surfing Championships last year, holding on to his fetch bumper. And in the bottom right is Paco fetching baseballs outside of the San Francisco Giants stadium. So let's just dive right in. The prerequisites: dog has to be 6 months or older to participate in fetch. You can certainly start training before that. I started working on retrieving with Paco from 10 weeks old when I picked him up, basically rolling a ball along the floor and letting him go get it and bring it back to me. But they do need some self-control to be able to pass these tests, even at the novice level. So I recommend that you have at least basic obedience, sit, stay, heel, and recall before you start training for fetch. Another command that's useful is what's called place. Place is a command that we use in hunting dog training. It means go to your place and stay there until I release you. I have seen this trained covered in some regular obedience classes as well. So I'll explain a little bit more about how to do place later on in the presentation. All right, so what are the rules? As I said, I'm not going to go through all the rules, but because there's a lot of them, but you should be able to download the rule book from akc.org/fetch. The way I like to think of it is, as I mentioned, the fetch is a simplified version of hunt tests, of retriever hunt tests in particular. So if you think of it in terms of what are the safety rules and the efficiency rules for waterfowl hunting and retrieving, that's why these rules and tasks are in place. In a hunting scenario for waterfowl, you might expect your dog to retrieve up to 100, even 200 yards away. In fetch, it's much shorter. It starts at 30 feet for novice and goes up to 80 feet for the retriever level, but still it's the same principle. And another thing that's helpful to understand as you get into the more advanced levels of fetch is this concept of singles, doubles, and triples. So a single is basically a scenario where you've had some ducks coming in, you shot just one of them, fell down, the dog saw it, you send the dog out to get it, and it comes back. A double is where ducks come in and maybe you shoot two of them or another hunter shoots another one. They fall down, the dog waits until you give them the command, and then it goes out and gets one of them, and then it brings it back and it goes out and gets the other one and brings it back. So you don't want dogs trying to get two at the same time. That just doesn't work. You also don't want them going out until you tell them to go out, and you also want them to go and get the particular items that you've sent them to. Triple is just the same thing, but with 3 retrieves at once. The last concept I'll talk about here is marked retrieve. So in advanced and retriever levels, you have bumpers that are dropped behind a blind, basically just a kind of short fence that's maybe 10 or 12 feet wide and 2 or 3 feet high. And the dog watches as the helper drops them, but they can't see where they land because it's behind the blind. So we call this a marked retrieve. And it covers this scenario where in hunting where maybe the bird falls behind some grasses or cattails or whatever, and they saw where it fell, but they don't know exactly where it is because they can't see the ground. So that's what marked retrieves are. So ring setup. So there's basically 2 types of ring setup. For novice and intermediate, you have these obstacles or diversions. We use kind of milk crates or plastic crates upside down. And in the novice level, you're going to have 4 of these. So you're going to imagine a line here that's 30 feet out from the starting line. This is the starting line down at the bottom. So you'd have these 4 obstacles, if you will, in the novice level. And you're going to be throwing the objects either to the left, to the center, or to the right. And same way with intermediates, just a little bit further, and there's 8 objects or obstacles instead of 4. In the advanced and retriever level, you've got 3 blinds, and so they're at 70 to 80 feet out. And I described how they're just child gates covered with material usually out at that distance. And the same principle, you're going to have 3 different angles basically that you're going to be sending the dog. Okay. So let's cover some basics of a retrieve, and I'll show a video example of this. The first thing you have to do is decide what body language or signal you're going to use to send your dog out for a retrieve. Normally, you have your dog heel to the left, and traditionally, if you're a right-handed shooter, you'd have your dog heeling at the left, so it's away from the barrel of the gun. If you're a left-handed shooter, you could have it on the other side. Presumably, this guy on the left here is a left-handed shooter, but either way, it doesn't matter really from a fetch rules perspective. Just pick something and stick with it so that your dog learns it well. The other difference between these two pictures is the kind of body position and hand signal. So this left picture is what we call the American style of sending your dog. So the handler stands fairly straight up, and then they use their hand, their left hand if your dog is heeled to the left, and you move it in a kind of bowling or horseshoe motion and give the dog a verbal command when you want it to leave. The one on the right is what we call the continental style, or I don't know why it's called continental because I've seen people in England do it as well. So it's more like a European style, but a lot of Americans do this as well. And I prefer this style. So you crouch down and kind of point in the direction that you're going to send the dog, and then you give them the command. I like this because it gives the dog a better signal and it feels more teamwork to me, but you can pick either way. The other thing to know is you have to have a verbal command, as I mentioned. In traditional hunting scenarios, we use the dog's name to send them. And this is because maybe you have 2 or 3 dogs sitting next to the duck blinds, and if you say back or fetch, they all might go at once, and you really only want one dog going at once. So that's why we use their name, but you can use back or fetch or whatever you want. Just pick something and stick with it, as I said. The other thing you have to decide is how you're going to signal to the dog when they come back, and how you're going to receive that object from the dog, especially when the dog is young and when you're just starting out. I like to crouch down a little bit and hold my arms open with the palms facing the dog so they see me well, and that encourages them to come to me. You can receive the bumper or ball with the dog sitting in front of you or even standing, like this picture on the right. Or the more formal way of doing it is to have them heel to your left or right, and then take it only after they've heeled and sat. That's a little bit harder, it's fancier, but I prefer to just do it from the front. But again, pick one and stick with it. All right, so let's watch an example here. This is a dog doing a very long retrieve, 100-yard retrieve or so, but you'll see the style that the trainer uses in sending the dog and taking it.
So I need to make sure I've aligned the dog correctly. Zach. You'll see that dummy was just stood up slightly so that when Dougie got close to it, he could see it, and it just drew him those last few meters. He'll bring the dummy back to me. Obviously, I want a nice delivery to hand.
So a couple things about that. As it said, the distance was much longer than what you'll need in fetch, but it's useful from a couple perspectives. One is, you saw how he sent the dog in this kind of mode channel of lawn there to encourage it to go straight. And even if you don't have access to something like that, you can use like a fence or a hedge or something like that to teach your dog this kind of straight line approach when you're starting out. That's one of the things that can go wrong, especially as you get into the higher levels. Okay. What are some common problems? One thing I see fairly often is the dogs get the zoomies or kind of run around after picking up the bumper and they don't come straight back to you. I have some solutions for that I'll go through in a little bit later, but basically it involves either using equipment that encourages them to come back to you or using, in some cases, food or treats. I, just to be perfectly transparent, often train with food. I train Paco before mealtime every day, really, 10 or 15 minutes. And so I take a bit of kibble out of the bowl that I'm going to give him treats here and there for doing things right. And then I'll have one final retrieve that I'll do with the rest of the food. And it's like jackpot after doing something well and doing a good training session. Don't be afraid to use treats sparingly or even a lot at the beginning, but know that you can't use treats to reward them in the ring. I think they said that you can give the dogs treats after the judges said, okay, you've passed, but you can't do it to take the bumper away or that sort of thing during the exercise. Dog doesn't wait until scent. We're going to talk about how to how to train for that. Dog plays tug of war and refuses to release the object. I'll give you some tips on that. The dog switches to a different bumper. So this is when you get to the advanced level and you've got doubles or triples. If the dog goes out to the one that you point to, but then sees another one and goes and picks up that one instead, that's called a switch and that disqualifies you, or it's not passed scenario. This last, or dog urinating, and that is hard when it's hot outside and you've been trying to keep your dog hydrated, but do your best to exercise them so they can relieve themselves well before you go into the ring, because it is a NQ, and also it makes it harder for the dogs that follow you. Dog looks back to the handler for guidance. So this isn't a common problem. It's a problem that I had with Paco because I did teach him hand signals. So when you're in a hunting scenario for the hunt tests, they have these signals that you can teach them to go over to the left or over to the right or back. And you're allowed to use those in AKC Fetch to a certain extent, but they only want you to use them once per test. So if your dog relies on them too much, then that's a fail. So I recommend if you're just doing fetch, don't even train them the hand signals for over. What object should I use? So a lot of people at the beginning levels, the novice and intermediate level, you can use a ball, you can use a toy even. I don't recommend that, except when you're getting started, for a few reasons. A tennis ball is great for certain scenarios for training, but it holds, because of the fuzziness of it, holds a scent. If you're training dogs to find a hidden duck in the grasses or whatever, you can rub duck scent on a tennis ball and use it to hide the ball and then use it to find it. But AKC Fetch is not a scent exercise. It's a test to see their accuracy in retrieving it on a straight line, basically. So you want something that doesn't hold a scent so they don't get confused and start thinking, oh, maybe that's not my ball. This other ball is my ball. Because dogs can tell. They smell your hand scent on the things and their own saliva and so on. I use these white bumpers. You can get them at gundogsupply.com or in stores. There's also canvas versions that are a little bit lighter if you have a smaller dog. They are easy to clean off and they don't hold the scent too much. They're also big. So the disadvantage of a tennis ball is that it can hide and disappear in the grass, especially if the grass hasn't been mowed recently, or it can get hidden next to the blind, that sort of thing. So a big white bumper stands out. It's easy to see. It used to get orange because I love the color orange, but dogs are colorblind apparently, so that orange can blend in with the grass. Oh, and there is one potential disadvantage of these bumpers. They have a rope on them typically, as you can see there. And some people are tempted when they're taking the bumper to grab the rope and then tug it away from them. And then it becomes a tug of war. Don't do that, because that's also can be a disqualification. And it's just a big no-no in retriever training because you don't want your ducks ripped up to pieces. Use treats or food to convince your dog to trust you and give you the bumper back, or just end the game if they're not giving it back in the training session, or even open your dog's mouth to take it out. But don't get into tug of war. That's my main recommendation there. Okay, so here's one piece of equipment that I was talking about. This is what we call a place board, and it can basically be just a piece of plywood with 2x4s holding it up off the ground. But you could buy these online and they can double as a dog cot or bed as well. And the reason they're useful is because the dog has to step up to get onto them or step off to get off of them. So it encourages them or gets them in the frame of mind, this is where I'm supposed to be, both before and after the fetch exercise. And it makes them less likely to bolt before you've given them the signal. And also, if you stand behind the place board, when the dog is coming back, it encourages them to come to the right place. So when I'm training, I would put it where this blue square is in the picture behind the starting line, and I would stand to the right of that when I throw out the bumper, then send him, and then I would come and stand behind it and take, so he would have to step onto it and hand it to me. Use that and then phase it out over time because you can't use the place board in the ring. Another tip that I picked up from some books and video training courses, what they call the 3 Ds of steadiness. This is part of teaching your dog that this is not just a game, this is a job that they have. You want to show your dog that not everything that's out there laying on the ground is theirs to retrieve. And one guy that I know, Mike Stewart, who's a professional trainer, recommends that at least 50% of the objects that you throw out there, you should pick up yourself or let another dog pick it up, not your dog. The reason is because when you get to these more advanced levels, you're going to have them distinguish between which one it is that they pick up. And you want to have a variety of them out there, and you send them to a certain bumper and have them pick up that one. I'll do some training or drills on that too that'll help with this. Delays is gradually increasing the amount of time before you send your dog out for the retrieve. You can do it just like a second or two. I like to, and by the way, so in the novice and intermediate levels, you are allowed to hold on to your dog's collar when you throw the object, and then you can let go when you give the command. But it's pretty easy to train them to stay while you do it. So I would get into this habit pretty early. And basically, if your dog's heeling at your left, you can block their path with your left leg, do the throw, and just do something short at first, and then move your leg away and send them. And if they do try to go out beforehand, you say no and start over again. But they'll learn pretty quickly, how to wait until you give them the command. Diversions is, again, throwing extra bumpers out there to discourage them from switching at the more advanced level. I'll show some examples of that. This is a drill that's fundamental to the advanced and retriever level. It's called the wagon wheel drill. Over here on the right, I've got a diagram of how it works. You're forming a circle, and you and your dog are in the middle of the circle. And you can start with just 2 bumpers, one at the 12 o'clock and one at 6 o'clock. And you face towards the 12 o'clock one and send your dog out for it, and then take it and turn around and then send your dog for the 6 o'clock one. So that teaches them that habit of, no, I don't get both of them. I do it one at a time when my human tells me to do it. The more, as you progress, you'll want to do 4 or maybe even 8 bumpers at a time so they get lesser and lesser angles. So let me just show the video first, and then I'll add some additional explanation.
I want him to go in. Now again, we want his spine in line and pointed in the same direction as my lead foot. Back. We give him a back command, we send him to the pile. Here, good boy, heel. Again, we can set him up for our next retrieve by having our foot point in that direction. Back. Here. You can start him in a direction, point in one direction, and then use it as an obedience healing drill like we are here. Pick it, heel, sit, good, back. And again, he sees the white bumpers, so it identifies it. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to transition to where we use orange bumpers, which he can't see. So he's going to have to go on his line that I'm sending him on. Same drill, we're going to throw it out in 4 different places. We're going to heel him, heel, back. He took his line, he brought it back, and we're going to continue this drill doing it the same as we did last time. Sit, back. And again, he's going out, he's finding it by taking his line that I'm giving him. Heel. This is where your heeling is very important. As your dog advances in this drill, we can make it more difficult. We can put out 8 bumpers. We can put out 16 bumpers. We can put out all orange, all white, or a combination of the 2. Ultimately, this is teaching your dog to trust the line that you're giving him and will make him more successful.
Okay. One thing that he didn't explain real thoroughly in that one is that the typical way of doing this is you put out 4 bumpers, let's say, at the different positions on the dial, and then you send your dog out for this one at 3 o'clock, let's say. He brings it back, you take it, and then before you go to the next one, you throw it back out again to the same spot where it was, and then you turn and face to the 12 o'clock. when you throw that one over to the 3 o'clock where it was, that creates what we call suction. So the dog is wanting to go pick up the one that was thrown most recently, but you're turning him and facing the new one at 12 o'clock, and you send him out to that one. If he starts to go to the 3 o'clock one, you say, no, stop, and you go and get it and start over again. But he'll quickly learn, he or she will learn that he's supposed to go to the one that you pointed him to. The reason it's a little bit easier going to the left is because your body is blocking him a little bit from the one to the right. So once you get really good, then you can start going to the right. So basically that's the wagon wheel drill. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. Strategy for the doubles and triples in particular. As you can guess from the wagon wheel drill, the closer the bumpers are together, the smaller the angle, the harder it is for the dog to avoid the potential of switching or getting confused about which one he's supposed to pick up. So what I like to do is when I'm doing doubles, I'll have the helper drop them in the 2 outside positions. That way you get a good solid angle. And I typically go from right to left, and so I'll have them drop this one on the right and then this one on the left, and I'll send him to the one on the left first. It's fresh in his memory. He doesn't have to remember anything, and so he'll just go and get that and come back. And then I turn the angle towards the right, and I'll send him out here to the right, and he'll see that one and pick it up. So that's the strategy for doubles. With triples, it's harder, but what I do is have them drop the first one on the right, the second one in the middle, the third one in the left. So that requires some memory, but it also, once you get your dog to trust you and go the direction you're sending them, it makes it a little bit easier because there's less temptation. I've seen some people that do it they send their dog in the same order that they were dropped. If that works for you, that's fine. But remember that the dog's natural instinct is to go to the one that was dropped most recently. And so you can take advantage of that by sending them to that one, and then you can use the memories for the other ones. Okay. So a couple other references: Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, which is an online video training class. It's a little bit expensive, but it's really good if you're getting into the advanced stuff and getting into hunting especially. Also, this sporting dog and retriever training by Mike Stewart is a really good book. It's only like $25, $30, and it's got lots of diagrams and pictures, and plus it's like a nice coffee table book. So those are 2 references for you. But you can also find a lot just online on YouTube. But hopefully that framework that I gave you will help you think about what things you need to work on. The Spanish Water Dog Club of America, again, the site there is swdclub.org. You can register for our tests either there or on the AKC website. And if you have any questions, even if you're not coming to our Waukesha events, feel free to ping me at art@travelswithpaco.com.